Welcome to the M1 Fitness Podcast. I'm your host, Marcus Sadu, and today we're going to be delving into what sort of fat loss results are quote-unquote normal. What can you expect on a weekly basis? So first off, we need to establish how we're going to assess results or progress, of course. So we've got a number of tools to work with here, such as the scale, pictures, how your clothes fit, and measurements. So if you're coaching yourself, I'd actually recommend that you favor the scale, okay? Reason being is, it is what it is. And things like pictures are hard to assess when you're evaluating yourself because it's just really tough to be objective. My clients tell me all the time that they don't see changes in their own pictures, but man, do I see them. Now, to be fair, I assess clients' photos all day long. It's literally my job, so I've had a lot of practice, but it's just hard to be objective when you're evaluating your own body versus someone else's, especially when it's on a weekly basis, meaning the time frame is small. The smaller the time frame, the harder the assessment. So it's easier to see potential changes over the course of a month than it is a week when it comes to pics, for example. How your clothes fit and measurements are useful tools as well, but they're also going to be much easier to use as assessment measures with a larger time frame. You're not going to see that big of a difference in how your clothes fit and what your measurements clock in at on a weekly basis, but you totally can on a monthly basis. So that's basically my long-winded way of saying use the scale. That number is what it is. And as long as you weigh yourself under the same conditions, i.e. first thing in the morning on an empty stomach, after you go to the bathroom, etc., week after week, you should get reasonably accurate data. If you're interested in a more detailed explanation of progress assessment itself, check out episode number 97 titled How to Know Whether You're Losing Fat or Not. Okay, so now that we've established how we're measuring our results, what sort of progress can we expect? This part may seem fairly obvious, but I think sometimes it's easy to lose sight of. Your progress is going to be a perfect reflection of your adherence to your nutrition, movement, sleep, and stress management, okay? These are the 4 pillars I focus on with my clients because they're the most important inputs. So the more effort you put in and the more consistent you are with those efforts, the better your results are gonna be. Shocker, right? Now, I know folks like specifics, so as a super general rule, losing about 1 to 2% of your total body weight per week is a really solid rate of loss. 1% being on the more conservative end of things and 2% being on the more aggressive side of things. So for example, if you are 150 pounds, that equates to losing 1.5 to 3 pounds per week, which is pretty darn quick, but entirely doable. Now, these percentages, of course, are relative because if someone is 300 pounds, those numbers are going to double. So 1 to 2% of 300 is 3 to 6 pounds per week. So the heavier you are, the larger your weekly losses are going to be, and the lighter you are, the smaller your weekly losses are going to be because, again, it's relative. So just be sure that you're taking your total body weight into account and not solely focusing on that bottom line loss digit. In other words, if you're in the 150 poundish range, don't compare your absolute weight loss numbers to someone who is in 250 poundish range. That ain't apples to apples. I do want to emphasize that the 1 to 2% losses per week digits are rough estimates, okay? They're not set in stone by any means. It depends on the individual. And when I'm working with clients, we're taking everything into account when assessing progress. Like, how fast do they want to lose? What's realistic? How is their lifestyle set up? What does their sleep look like? How are their movement patterns, work schedule, family commitments? You get the idea. All of this stuff factors in as far as what route we ultimately take and what sort of progress we are shooting for on a weekly and monthly basis. A quick little aside here between wants and expectations or inputs and outputs on the results front. So let's say someone comes to me and says, Marcus, I want to lose 30 pounds in 12 weeks. I'm like, great, here's what we need to do in order to reach that goal. And they're like, yeah, okay, I'm willing to do some of that, but not all of it. My response would be, all right, we need to temper our expectations, being that you're not willing to implement all of the things necessary in order to reach that 30-pound goal in 12 weeks. If they then say, oh no, I still want to lose 30 pounds in 12 weeks, I've got nothing for this person because they just want what they want, right? But they don't want to implement the things necessary in order to get it. It's sort of like this person going to their boss and saying, boss, I want a raise. And their boss is like, awesome. I've been waiting for you to take on more responsibility and move up the chain of command. You're gonna need to take on 2 more projects and work an extra 10 hours per week. And they're like, yeah, no, I just want the raise. I don't want to take on any more responsibility or work. Their boss is just going to laugh them out of their office, right? Because we're all well aware that if we want more compensation, we need to ramp up contribution. And the same goes for fat loss. If you want a better result, you need to do what it takes in order to achieve that result. So this is why I mentioned that your progress is going to be a perfect reflection of your adherence and your consistency to your program, or in other words, the inputs. If faster results are important to you, you're going to need to apply more effort. But if you're okay with slower results, then inputs don't need to be as effortful. And then of course, if you're not getting results at all, you're not doing anything differently, just because if the results aren't showing up, by definition, nothing has changed on the input front. Now, I'll use myself as an example. I've been going through an extended fat loss phase over the course of the last while, and I've been in no rush at all. So I've lost less than 1% of my body weight on average per week. But that's okay with me because I haven't wanted to make certain sacrifices in order to get faster results. But if I wanted faster results, of course, I'd need to put more in on the front end. Now, my results haven't been necessarily slow either. I've lost just under 1 pound per week, and I'm really happy with my overall progress so far. And I've still been able to go out for multiple meals on a weekly basis, enjoy some alcoholic bevies, go on vacation, etc., which were all things that I personally didn't want to give up in order to get faster results. Because again, I've been in no rush. There's nothing wrong with a faster approach to fat loss, and there's nothing wrong with a slower approach. Progress is progress, and as long as you're happy with the balance between the inputs and the outputs, you're golden. Having said that, I'm gonna put a separate podcast together on fast versus slow fat loss and the pros and the cons of both, just so that you're aware of the trade-offs at play, because that'll make it easier for you to decide which approach is a better fit for you personally. So 1 to 2% of your total body weight per week is a really nice digit to hit, and I think just about anyone would be pretty friggin' stoked on that rate of progress. And just keep in mind that if you want a faster and or better result, you need to put the appropriate inputs in place in order to achieve that. You can think about it like learning anything really. The more effort and practice you put in, the faster you're going to get better, and the exact same thing applies to fat loss. Now, if you are not one for numbers and you just want to really simplify the rate of loss, Delio, losing a pound per week, no matter what your starting weight is, equates to 52 pounds per year. Now, losing 2 pounds per week, no matter what your starting weight is, equates to over 100 pounds per year. So you can totally just take that approach if you'd prefer it. Just keep in mind that if you're really light, like say under 150 pounds, generally speaking, the percentage approach is likely the way to go, just because things become much more relative at that point. If you'd like to apply for online nutritional coaching and or workout programming with me, you can head over to n1fitness.com/coaching or click the link in the show notes below. Follow me up on Instagram at N1Fitness and friend me on Facebook at Marcus Sadu. Thanks so much for listening, and I will catch you on the next episode. See ya.